Hi, everybody. It's Kelsi, of course, of the channel Super Kicking It with Kelsi that you're watching right now. I am Kelsi. That's me. That's me. I was not a big fan of the Amanda show, but she used to always say that. If you guys remember that show from the 90s, it wasn't my favorite, I gotta say. But I hope you guys are doing good today. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. Thanks for tuning in and spending part of it with me. It means a lot, like a ton, I gotta say. And I'm really excited. I've got so much to talk about. I'm so pumped up. So this is kind of like a live Q&A video. I've got some questions that I got from Twitter, but if you guys in the chat didn't get to leave a question, you can leave one in the chat and I'll answer it. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, movie soundtracks, and in fact, Jamie is talking about that in the chat right now. Dazed and Confused soundtracks rule. Not a bad movie either. That movie rules. I do really like that movie, and that's a good choice for sure. Nails and NY is here. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you, and appreciate you sharing earlier my video on Twitter. Guys, if you wouldn't mind, I would love it if you left a like for me. That would really help out my analytics. If you're not subbed already, can you please sub? That would mean a lot. I hate asking for subs, but if you like my content, you can catch it by subbing, by clicking the notification bell, and then you'll never miss any of my videos. So today, some of the things I'm going to talk about, like I just mentioned, movie soundtracks, but also, gosh, 90s kids movies, 90s cartoons, snack food in general, but specifically also 90s snacks, and a lot of cool topics. Movie soundtracks, like I said, not just movie soundtracks, but regular music as well. Someone asked me about my favorite song from the 90s, which is super hard. I mean, how can you pick? There's like billions of songs that were from the 90s. I don't know. So that'll be difficult, but I took some notes because I was like, I can't just answer some of the questions are just too hard. I can't just come up with answers off the top of my head because sometimes I'm like, what should really be my answer when I'm like torn between two things? That's why I created that show Either Or, because I always have trouble picking between stuff. Dave has joined us in the chat. Hey, Dave. Brian Payne was in here earlier. Hi, Brian. Again, thanks to all of you guys who are watching right now. And let's get into the questions. But actually, no, before we get into the questions, I'm going to change it up. I'm going to talk a little bit about why did I say I was going to talk about Free Willy and Blank Check? Well, I've got this new video coming up about 90s kids movies. It's going to be a stream. It's going to have graphics. These are more casual streams, the Q&As. But the kids movie stream is going to be so organized. I've already started making graphics. I'm going to read people's tweets and opinions about what kids/family movie from the 90s that they think is the best. I also will reveal poll results because I put out a whole bunch of polls basically pitting different 90s movies against other movies. And really, we're specifically talking about kids' movies, as in family movies. Hook, Mrs. Doubtfire, A Goofy Movie, Blank Check, Heavyweights, all kinds of different movies. Home Alone, even though that's more of a holiday movie, it's still a 90s kids movie. At first, I thought Uncle Buck would be awesome to talk about, but it's actually an 80s movie. So I can't talk about Uncle Buck with John Candy, who I love, but I'll talk about a lot of other movies, and it'll be a ton of fun. Another 90s movie, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. And Free Willy. As I just said, I just rewatched Free Willy in preparation for this stream and Blank Check. I took notes. I am so excited to talk about Free Willy because, well, it's a great movie. It's a feel-good movie, but there's a lot of extra information that people don't realize about the movie. Connections to other 90s kids movies and even 80s movies. And also, there's really interesting stuff that happened to the whale that played Willy. Good stuff, not bad stuff. You know, the movie actually changed the whale's life for the better. And there's actually a documentary surrounding that whale that starred in Free Willy. So I'm going to rewatch that documentary. I haven't seen it in like 5 years. So I'm going to watch it. And I'm going to kind of talk about the documentary as well as Free Willy the movie, because there's a lot of interesting tidbits about all of it, and it's really going to be fascinating. I'm really excited because I'm going to have a lot of trivia. We're going to talk about movie ratings, not my ratings, but like official ratings. A lot of 90s kids movies, here's a little spoiler, they're rated terribly. And we'll get into the specific ratings during the stream, but yeah, it'll surprise you how bad the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes for these shows are. It's crazy how bad. It really, really is. Dave says, Free Willy's message is so strong. It is a good, powerful message, and I love how much Jesse, the main character in Free Willy, loved the whale, and how he really connected with the whale because he was kind of lost and a troubled youth at the time, but really Willie kind of helped turn his life around. So we'll talk all about that, and I'll get to also review Blank Check, because a lot of people wanted me to review Blank Check. Blank Check, if you guys remember the film from the 90s, it is so messed up. But I gotta say, it's still one of my favorite movies. But yeah, a grown woman kisses like a 12-year-old kid in it. On the lips, not on the cheek. She calls, their night out together a date. He doesn't call it a date. She says it's a date. So yeah, there's all these weird undertones that people will be like, it's terrible movie. And it is gross and terrible, the whole idea of her flirting with this kid. But the movie's still funny. It's still great and ridiculous. And there's a lot you can make fun of about the movie, but there's a lot you could still like authentically. So we're going to go through all of that. And I'm not going to go through that today. This is just all the cool things to look forward to for my 90s stream. I'm so proud of this. I'm putting in so much work on this. Like, I know you might be saying, how much work is it really to rewatch 90s kids movies? Isn't that fun? Well, yes, but you have to like research things, like find out who's in the movie, what they're doing now. So it's a lot of cross-referencing, really. Because although I'm just watching the movies and I'm taking notes during the movies, but I'm also actually going and finding trivia about these movies. Because I don't want it to just be my opinion about the movies. That's not what this stream is going to be about. If you guys recently watched my either or Goonies or Stranger Things video where I had to pick between both things, which one I liked better, which was so hard, by the way. If you missed it, catch it. I just streamed 3 days ago. It's the latest video on my uploads feed on my channel page. You could find it easily. But if you want to find out, who I chose, check that out. But yeah, that video was more like casual, me talking about opinions and other people's opinions. This 90s kids movie stream will have a lot more facts and anecdotes and stuff like that. So it'll be really, really fun. Oh, we got more people in the chat talking about their favorite soundtracks. Someone said the Underworld soundtrack is really the best for me. Brian said that. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever heard that soundtrack. Oh, this is a great one. And God, this is a good choice for a movie soundtrack. Jamie says, Ghostbusters is a killer film, but the soundtrack, from the score to the pop songs, I love it. Yeah, it is a great soundtrack. That's a good choice, actually. Man, I mean, I actually have that soundtrack, not on CD, on audio cassette from, like, legit the 90s, even though, Ghostbusters from the 80s, but I bought the cassette in the 90s, and I still have it somewhere. So, and Nails and NY is shouting out Cool Runnings in the chat for a 90s kids movie. Since we can't talk about Uncle Buck and John Candy in that movie because it's from the 80s, yeah, I will talk a little bit about Cool Runnings. And Cool Runnings was in my 90s kids movie poll, pitted against other 90s kids movies. We'll see if it won and got into the finals or not. I'll reveal that when we get into the stream. But yeah, Cool Runnings is a great film. That's totally an underrated movie because there's all these, like, very well-known sports kids movies. If you think about, like, sports-centered movies, you got Air Bud, you got The Sandlot, you got, what is that movie? A Kid in King Arthur's Court, because I think he played baseball. Then you've got Rookie of the Year, all these crazy good, of course, my favorite, Mighty Ducks. You gotta love that movie. I'm wearing a hockey sweatshirt right now, so it's not a Ducks jersey, or sweatshirt. But hey, I'm a Bruins fan. I actually was a Ducks fan when I first started getting into hockey like 2 years ago, but then the Bruins just captured me. And really, I only started off as a Ducks fan because of the movie Mighty Ducks, and they don't even use that logo anymore. Sometimes they'll put on their throwback jerseys and it has like the duck mask, like from the cartoon and from like the second movie, but they never use the logo of like the duck in a hockey jersey with a hockey stick. That's the first jersey used in the first Mighty Ducks movie, and they don't use that to play. They only use like the duck mask kind of logo instead. Oh man, Nails and NY is on a roll here, coming up with cool shout outs in the chat. 90s movie soundtracks that are good. Wayne's World and Batman Forever. Those are good choices too. Like Batman, I know you're shouting out Batman the movie, but Batman the Animated Series is another great soundtrack. That actual show had a wonderful, not only theme song, but also score. If you listen to like the instrumentals throughout the show, it's really, really, really good. Derek's joining us in the chat. Thanks for joining, Derek. I appreciate you. And we will talk about 90s kids films when the time comes. I'm kind of hyping that up quite a bit. I know, a little too much. But I'll give you a sneak peek of sneak peek. I'll give you a sneak peek of one of my little, I guess, observations from Blank Check. So there's this great part where Juice, one of the bad guys, is trying to get Preston, the little boy, and he winds up outside in Preston's batting cages. And so the lights are off, he can't see where he is. Preston, with a remote control from inside the house, turns on the lights and turns on the, I guess, pitching machine where like it launches baseballs really, really, really fast and powerfully. So then basically Tone Loc, who plays Juice, the musical artist from the 90s, he has to avoid getting hit by these baseballs, but he can't. So he ends up just getting hit by them. And Preston's like yelling inside the house. I don't know who he's talking to. He's supposed to be hiding from the other bad guys. There's 3 total bad guys. Only one of them is outside getting hit with baseballs. He still has at least one other guy to contend with, but he's yelling in the house anyway, being like, "Yeah, take that. How about a screwball?" And then, of course, after he says that, the next ball he launches hits Juice in the nuts, and Preston says, "Oh, that's gotta hurt." It's just so corny writing, so terrible lines. But the part that made me laugh about that scene is Juice. He doesn't know, nobody's around. I don't know why he does this. He like looks into, I guess, the remote control camera, and he goes, "Hey, ho," as he's trying to like avoid baseballs. Like, I don't understand why in that situation nobody's around him. He's trying to like miss these baseballs and get out the way. He's like, "Hey, ho," like doesn't seem like a good strategy to avoid these baseballs. What is he doing? I don't know. This is just one of my little observations. I have like 4 pages of notes from Blank Check. So that's all I'm doing for the hype of the 90s Kids video. I promise I won't do it again. So that's it for now for 90s Kids movies. Let's just say I hope you guys tune in because I'm putting in a lot of work and I think you'll enjoy it. I'm so excited about it. I gotta say, it's been like so long in the making. I said on my last stream, 8 months in the making. So please, please, please check it out. And although I did do quite a long bit of plugging there, I think it was more like a sneak preview and it had some content in it besides just plugging. So hopefully you guys are not too annoyed with me for talking about that so long. Let's get into the questions, guys. All right, I've got so many good questions. I'm very excited. Let me pull up my little window here so I could see the questions. All right, the first one's from our friend Derek Stark, who's in the chat right now. If you could combine 2 shows together to make one super show, what shows would you combine and why? And he didn't put like a decade limit on it. Like it doesn't have to be from the 90s. He's basically asking what shows, and I'm assuming it could be any shows across any decade. However, I kind of, not on purpose, but I kind of I had 2 choices, and I did them both in the same decade. So I don't know why I did this, but whatever. All right. So I said I would like to combine Pete and Pete with Justice League, the animated series. And if you guys are familiar with Batman, the animated series, it's the same, obviously, the same people who are kind of involved in making Justice League, the animated series, also the same animation studios. And it's a really, really great show if you guys haven't checked it out. There's a lot of buzz behind Batman, the animated series, but hardly anyone talks about Justice League. And it's really, really good. I love how they have the character of Martian Manhunter, which really isn't shown in a lot of Justice League adaptions, like for film or TV. So I think it's really neat that the Justice League animated series has him in it because I really like him as a character. So I think it'd be funny. You might be thinking, why the hell are you combining those together? I think Pete and Pete would mix with Justice League only for one reason, and it's because of Artie, the strongest man in the world. I think Artie, along with actual superheroes mixed together, how would he work with them? How would that work? It'd be fascinating. I think it'd be a cool plot. Artie having to kind of conform. Maybe the other heroes don't like Artie, and they're like, he's a fake, phony superhero. And so maybe they make fun of him. I just think it'd be really ridiculous. Obviously, it'd be hard to mix live action and cartoons, but hey, they did it with Roger Rabbit, so why not? You could make it work, or you could have an animated version of Artie from Pete and Pete thrown in to the Justice League, like drawn in. I don't know. Either way, I think it could work, and it's just my little imagination running wild and being stupid. So I don't know. Oh my gosh. Nails and NY says, remember when Scooby Doo combined with Johnny Bravo? That was awesome. I actually do remember that vaguely. Not like, I don't remember it very, very well, but God, there was a lot of Scooby Doo crossovers actually. Actually, and another show that had a lot of crossovers really was more of homages. I don't know if it's in such a positive way, but South Park would always have stuff like, they'd have a band they would draw in, they would do little stylistic throws to other things. So I thought they did that well too. But yeah, Scooby Doo, I felt did a lot of crossover stuff, and Johnny Bravo being one of them. And I do remember that. That's pretty cool. And I have another answer to Derek's question about combining two shows together into a super show. This would probably blow up the internet because it would be so awesome, and it would blow up TV screens wherever it was shown because it'd be so good. It could, like, whatever medium was used to show it wouldn't be able to handle the awesomeness, and it would just like implode. So The Office mixed with Parks and Rec. And yeah, you might be saying those are like the same show. Well, obviously it's like definitely the same style of show and made by kind of a similar group of people, but the characters are different in that there's different reasons to love characters from each show, and they just have amazing casts in both cases for both shows. So I think if you mix The Office with Parks and Rec and make it into one show, imagine Michael Scott interacting with Leslie. Oh, it would be incredible. I think that's a really, really, really good idea. Yeah, Derek saying he likes that idea. So is Nails, and why she likes it too. Uh, Jamie is saying, remember when Scooby Doo and the gang met Sonny and Cher? Not 90s, but still fun. Very fun. Like I said, Scooby Doo did that kind of stuff all the time, just mixing pop culture stuff in. And I think that's why I love Scooby Doo, and I think it's really lasted and stayed relevant across different decades. Yeah, they've done different iterations of Scooby Doo. It's not all been the same iteration, like the same show, but it's obviously been the same characters and mostly the same premise for the most part. So I think it's worked and it's lasted, and so there's got to be a reason for that. So great question, Derek. I love it. Thank you so much. That was one of my favorite questions, but I had so many good ones. All right. Here's a question that's actually easy for me, and the people who asked it might balk at me, but we'll see. All right, so Carlos at Sports and Things 1 said, if you could bring back one show, only one, which one would you pick? Boy Meets World or Recess? And my friend Jeremy at Jeremy Lampert, I always say things, why am I tongue-tied? At Jeremy Lampert 88 said, oh, I need this answer. So I hate to disappoint my friend Jeremy and Carlos, but I gotta say, this choice is super easy for me. It's 100% easily Boy Meets World. Now, I'm not knocking Recess. It was a great show, but I was never as into it as I was into Boy Meets World. I mean, Boy Meets World, the funny thing is I didn't watch it on the TGIF lineup when it was airing. I watched it on rerun when it was airing on Disney Channel. And so to me, I hope Jeremy is not upset with this choice, but Boy Meets World, it's just not a tough choice for me. It's just such a good show. Not only did it have the laughs, but it had lovable characters, but great morals too. And the cool thing is, I got to talk to the co-executive producer and a writer on Boy Meets World, Mark Blutman, who happens to be a very big wrestling fan. And he was such a cool guy, told me all kinds of stories about him working with Big Van Vader, because obviously, if you guys are Boy Meets World fans, you might remember that Vader guest starred on at least 3 episodes of Boy Meets World. And to me, he was probably the best guest star that they had, period. He was just so good, and he really gelled in the show. As much of an kind of non-believable character he is, like, he's so over the top, he somehow gelled and worked in the show so much. So to me, I don't know, it's just such a one-of-a-kind show. Very feel good. And Mark Blutman told me so many cool things about the show and making the show and how proud he was of the show. And he also worked on Girl Meets World too, which in a way is kind of like a sequel to Boy Meets World, because there is some of the cast from Boy Meets World growing up in Girl Meets World. Now, I think that has ended, but I know that has ended, but still, I think it's cool that they get to continue on the story. We got to see a little bit into Corey and Topanga's lives as adults and their family that they started and created. It's pretty cool. Time flies, but it's nice when we can kind of revisit our favorite pop culture universes, Dave said Recess was all right, but Boy Meets World defined a generation. I do think that Boy Meets World kind of holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts, whereas Recess, I feel like, is good and entertaining, but it doesn't have like as big of a meaning in people's hearts as Boy Meets World does. Derek says the love with Corey and Topanga was amazing. Oh, that's very true. I love their relationship. A lot of people really, thought of them as relationship goals, as people say. So that was a great question, and I had a lot of fun. Although they might be dismayed at how easily I made the choice between Recess and Boy Meets World, but to me, there's only one correct answer for me personally. All right, so then we go to my friend at the Flanjon. He said, "Did you watch any of the show?" Of course, this is from '90s Nickelodeon. "Did you watch any of Salute Your Shorts? What was your favorite episode if you did?" And I gotta say, this will also be a disappointing answer. Yes, I did watch Salute Your Shorts, but for some reason, I don't remember even one episode very well. I can't remember it at all. All I remember is the awesome, iconic theme song and obviously the Camp Anawana logo, which they sell shirts with that now. But yeah, I can't really remember a specific episode. But the reason I wanted to address this question is because although I can't remember specific episodes, one day I'll get around to rewatching it. But if you guys loved Salute Your Shorts, I got to plug one of my favorite podcasts right here. Big Orange Couch. You could find them on Twitter at BOC Podcast. BOC Podcast. And you could find them on iTunes and Podbean by searching Big Orange Couch. They discuss everything 90s Nickelodeon. And when I say everything, I really mean everything from 90s Nickelodeon. So they've talked about, commercials. They've talked about, um, obviously, Salute Your Shorts. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Pete and Pete is one of their favorite shows. In fact, they probably talk about Pete and Pete and Are You Afraid of the Dark the most, but they've touched on Rugrats. They've even touched on shows that aren't their favorite or my favorite, like Cat Dog and some other shows. I think they've done a Cat Dog episode. I think they might have been forced into it. I know they did a Rocket Power. They did one on Wild and Crazy Kids. Actually, they reviewed the episode of Wild and Crazy Kids that had actors from Salute Your Shorts on the show. So they did a special edition review of Wild and Crazy Kids. It was almost like a crossover between Wild and Crazy Kids and Salute Your Shorts, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But they've done a ton of stuff just on Salute Your Shorts, including they've written their own episodes of Salute Your Shorts. So they've done this with a lot of other shows too, like Kenan and Kel. I just listened to their Write Your Own episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? I gotta say, it blew my mind. It was so good of an episode. So I gotta recommend them 100% because as much as you guys think I love Nickelodeon, and I do, I think that they're just on another level. They analyze it, they talk about facts and trivia, and a lot of the way I do things on my channel and like some of the things I started to do in my wrestling podcast, I kind of minorly got inspired from them to do. Like they do this thing where they do a versus episode, which they have to defend two things from the channel. Like I know one was Kenan versus Kel. And so what they did was one host defended why Kel was better, the other host defended why Kenan was better, and at the end a third host made the decision who made the better argument and who won, essentially. So it's more like debate style, but it loosely inspired my either or series where I have to pick between two things I love. So it's not really the same because I don't debate between the two. I just kind of have to pick and give my personal reasons why. It's not like a third person, picking between people's arguments and defenses against or of one versus the other. So it's similar in style, but different. So I got to recommend them 100%. So yes, I can't tell you my favorite episode of Salute Your Shorts, but they've done so many episodes of their podcast about Salute Your Shorts and plenty of other 90s Nick stuff too, for sure, because they're really awesome. Have they talked about Nick Arcade and Global Guts? I know they talked about Guts. In fact, I think they did a versus episode of Guts versus, was it Legends of the Hidden Temple? Where they had to defend, one of them had to defend Legends and the other had to defend Guts and why one was better than the other. And I can't remember who won, but it's a great episode. Check it out. I don't know if they talked about Nick Arcade. They might have done it in like a listener kind of Q&A episode, which they've done some of those too. They have a lot of different styles of episodes, meaning like sometimes they'll review an episode, sometimes they'll write an episode of a show, like they'll watch it, get the style of it, and write their own story of a show and make that a podcast episode. Then, like I said, they do these versus episodes, and sometimes they have reviews with people like they interview. Did I just say review? They interview people that were actually involved in '90s Nick stuff. Like they interviewed DJ McHale, who's obviously involved with Are You Afraid of the Dark? They've interviewed a couple of people from '90s Nick who were actually involved in making the show. So I know I'm going on about them, but they're like the people to go to. And I do hope to have kind of like a crossover with them in the future. I just have to approach them about it, but I'd love to do something where they appear on my channel. I guess it would have to be, they don't really show their faces. It's a running joke on the podcast. So maybe I just get like some voice clips or something, or I'll just do an audio version of something and release it because I want to do something with them where we both talk about Nick stuff. And I think that would be a lot of fun. All right. So I can't tell you Salute Your Shorts details, but they can. So go there. All right. So now we've got another question, and a lot of them are '90s related. I'm kind of excited because I love '90s stuff. My good friend, Good Guy Dave, who's in the chat right now, at Dave Pozeski on Twitter. Which '90s series / cartoon deserved a movie but never got one? I think this is a great question. But before I get into what movie could be made to kind of spin off of a show, I'll talk about shows that actually did kind of receive the movie treatment, or at least like a continuing story treatment. There are a lot of shows that actually this has happened with. Like, a few years ago, you could have said Rocco should have had a movie. Well, guess what? Now Rocco's Modern Life does have a movie, and it's out on Netflix. Man, how things have changed. And like I said, also a couple of years ago, you could have said Are You Afraid of the Dark could have had a movie based off of it. And now it did. It had like a little mini series, and now they're going to renew it for a second mini series based on Are You Afraid of the Dark. It's not like, an exact movie starring the same characters of Are You Afraid of the Dark, but it's the same premise. Also, there's been Twin Peaks had a movie. ER didn't have a movie after it was over, but the pilot is essentially like one long movie. And ER is one of my favorite shows of the '90s. So there's a tons of shows that actually did get a movie treatment, or at least a continuing of a story. And I like that. I think that's really cool. But movies that should have been made, or shows that should have a movie based off of them, I think should be Freaks and Geeks, because that show is so good, but it only lasted for a season. What happened to the characters? We could easily have a movie that could have addressed that. So that didn't get a follow-up, but I think should have. Hell, even Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, Buffy, there's comics and stuff that are in the same universe that follow Buffy after the series ended. And of course, they did have the spin-off series Angel, which I didn't watch all of, but I think a movie with the actual characters from Buffy, like with the actual actors from the show, would be really interesting to see where they are like 10 years later, 20 years later. That would be really interesting. And, I know it's been continuing on in comic form, but it's just not the same when you're reading a comic versus seeing the actors who you know and love, who've portrayed these characters so faithfully for so many years. You want to see them reprise the roles and say the lines and have a continuing story, not just a continuing story on the page, for instance. Another show I think could have had a movie based off of it, My So-Called Life. Another show that was definitely canceled way too soon. I like in our comments right now, Eddie001 is saying Boy Meets World deserved a movie. Now, Boy Meets World didn't get a movie, but they did get a follow-up series with Girl Meets World, where we did get to see Corey and Topanga where they are now. So we didn't get a movie, and we could still get a movie. That would be kind of cool, but I think we did get a continuation in some way. So yeah, it does deserve more, but I think they got a good, a really good reboot where you get to revisit the old characters at the same time. And Mark Blutman was very proud of what he did with Girl Meets World. So if you guys haven't checked it out, it's not the same as Boy Meets World, but it's definitely got the same feel in that it's really heartfelt. And the creators really put a lot of love into it. And you could see that in the few episodes I watched. I could definitely tell that. I like this. Nails and NY is saying, so are Corey and Topanga the ultimate nostalgic relationship goals, or is it someone else? I vote Kevin and Winnie from the Wonder Years. Yeah, but Kevin and Winnie had such a storied relationship in that, like, I felt like they could never get together truly. And then I remember, I haven't seen the Wonder Years in years, But I remember how the ending was really sad and, like, disappointing. I think didn't they get together and then not get together? Or something happened that was crazy. I could be remembering all wrong. It's been so long, like, maybe 20 years since I saw The Wonder Years. But, yeah, I liked the idea, how they did love each other, but I just don't think in terms of relationship goals, it ever really, like, fully seemed like it worked out with them in a copacetic way, but I could be remembering wrong. Nails, you might have to refresh me because 'cause I'm not as familiar with the show as you, but that is a good couple, a good TV couple. There's a whole bunch. I mean, a couple that's not really a couple, but I feel like I didn't watch the Hey Arnold movie, so I don't know what they did with Helga and Hey Arnold, but I haven't seen Hey Arnold in years, and recently I started rewatching it, and I didn't realize, like, yeah, Helga's mean, but at the same time, she's got a lot of, like, hidden niceness and stuff that she brings out, and she does nice for Arnold. So, like, in the Christmas episode, I talked about this in one of my other streams, she gave up one of her Christmas gifts to try to do something nice for Arnold, who was actually trying to do something nice for someone else. So it was like this whole chain of like kind of giving back and doing good. And so Helga was really nicer than she appeared. Then there was this really cool episode where Helga and Arnold go on a date, but she's disguised as someone else. Like she's pretending to be a foreign exchange student. And Arnold actually really likes her, and she's actually being really nice. So it's like I would have loved to have seen them like get together. I don't know what happened in the Hey Arnold movie, but I was hoping secretly when they announced that they were doing a movie that they would do something with Arnold and Helga's relationship because I kind of like Helga now that I've been rewatching it. It's kind of weird how I like her. I mean, I don't like when she's mean, but there are some really cool parts where she's very nice. Plus, she's got a messed up family. Like her parents are so mean to her, so no wonder she's got a little mean streak. She kind of has a troubled childhood a bit, in my opinion. And her mom always seems to be drinking. It's very weird. Or I think she's drinking. I mean, it kind of makes it seem like she is. Like, her family's a little troubled, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of realistic, actually. But yeah, Helga just never gets the attention at home. So I think she kind of lashes out and is mean sometimes. All right. So I'm just making sure nobody dropped anything in the comments that I didn't. Stoop Kid's afraid to leave his stoop, said Eddie001. I love that episode. It's one of my favorite episodes of Hey Arnold. It is so iconic. And like I said, Big Orange Couch actually talked about that episode. They specifically reviewed the Stoop Kid episode, and it's really good. I like this. Eddie says Winnie is no Topanga. Winnie took Evan for granted many times. Now, that's what I remember because it just seemed like they were never getting along. It's exactly what I remember. But also, I remember there was an instance where Topanga and Corey had a falling out too. There was that period after, Topanga's parents, I think, split up. She had like a crisis. And she was unsure about her and Corey's relationship for a while after that. So to me, even Corey and Topanga had some rough spots, but they overcame it. Kevin and Winnie don't end up together, but I like the old one that got away romantic memories. That is a cool scenario, and Kevin just longed after Winnie for so long. So it is a kind of cool love story to watch, but at the same time you're like bummed out that they didn't wind up together. That's what I just remember the most about Wonder Years. Like I can't believe they don't end up together. All right, so more questions. That was a great question, Dave. So many good shows that didn't get a movie, but I forgot to actually answer one of the ones I had meant to say. All right, so I do think that if we're talking about cartoons getting a movie, I think Gargoyles would be perfect to get like a continuation. It doesn't matter that the actors are older, all you need is their voices. Gargoyles was one of the best old school animated shows in the 90s, and it's underrated as hell. A lot of people don't remember how great Gargoyles was. It wasn't just like some cartoon, like adults could enjoy it too. And they've actually continued Gargoyles in comic form, much like Buffy. But the thing is, they had to, I think, recently shut down their continuation. Like they were going to keep going, but they had to stop it because of funding issues. But the executive producer of the original show Gargoyles basically wrote what he would want to unfold if there were a third season that was in their control. There was a third season that was produced and aired, but no one that was involved with the show liked the third season. So they like to pretend like the third season of Gargoyles never happened. So the comic that was made kind of rewrites the third season the way that the original creators would have wanted it. And I think a movie could have gone even further and done that like on screen instead of on paper. So I would definitely say Gargoyles. Eddie says he had his Gargoyles action figures from Toys R Us. That's awesome. I had like they made the first few episodes of Gargoyles, like essentially the pilot and a few other episodes, into like a long movie. It was 4 parts when it aired, but they sold it as like a VHS movie, which I had, and it came with a board game, I think. And at the end of the VHS, there was like this thing that you had to interact with the VHS and your board game. It like told you to do something. I can't remember, but I had that. So I had some Gargoyles merch back in the day. Oh my gosh. Nails and NY asked me a great question. With all the new toys coming out today, do you have favorite toys from your childhood? I had so many little ponies, she said, before the new ones got weird. Yeah, the new ones, I don't like the animation style at all, and people are like really into the new ones for different reasons. But I loved all my Mighty Morphin Power Ranger toys. I had a ton. I had all these little action figures, and they're actually still up in my room at home because I'm not like a toy collector, but I do love the aesthetics of old like toys from childhood. They're so colorful, they're so great looking. So in my room at my parents' house, not here at my apartment with Paul, but at my parents' house, my room's kind of I always tell them like don't touch anything in my room. Leave it the way it is. So it's got like all kinds of 90s toys everywhere, actually. Stuff that I've collected that I don't obviously play with, but I like looking at. So, like on the top shelf in my room on a bookshelf is a replica of Pee Wee's Playhouse. Not from Pee Wee the movie, Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It's the Playhouse from the TV show Pee Wee's Playhouse. And literally, like, so it's just like the outside, and it has like a handle you could lift it up. But you unsnap the corners and it unfolds, and then it's the inside. And it comes with like action figures. So it had like Pee Wee, and it even had like Cherry. It had furniture that actually was in the Playhouse. So it came with all these different pieces, and there was things you could buy additionally to add to the set, but the set came with like a whole bunch of stuff to begin with. And we still have the box it came in the attic. It's actually worth quite a bit on eBay if you look it up, but mine's not in the greatest shape because like the door, which is like a sticker, well, the outside of the door is a sticker and it kind of peeled off a little. I've been asking my dad to help me fix it because I don't want to. I could fix it, but then I might ruin it. So, also, God, there's so many great toys that I loved. I was just talking about Gigapets on Twitter the other day. I was putting out a tweet about, do you guys remember Gigapets? I had like the koala pink one, and it would always be crying, and it died and whatever. I wasn't a very good parent to my little Gigapet koala, but it is what it is. I tried. I really did, but I failed. So that was a cool toy. I had a Furby, of course. Everyone had Furbies. I had a mix of like girly toys and kind of like toys that most girls didn't have. Like I had tons of Power Ranger stuff. I was just obsessed with Power Rangers. And I like the Red Ranger. Most like girls like the Pink Ranger, but I loved the Red Ranger. Also, I had a play kitchen. I know a lot of girls had that growing up, but I loved mine. It had so much food. We had a fake fridge, a fake washer, like fake house stuff. And I know that sounds silly, but it was a lot of fun to play with. Of course, I had an easy bake oven. I had, what was it, gack and slime. I would always buy that, the stuff that you'd press together. I can't remember which one that you would put on a newspaper and it would like literally, the ink would come off. I think, was that gack? I can't remember, but I had all that slime stuff. Everyone, I think, as a kid kind of liked to go and get that from the grocery store every now and then or a convenience store. I haven't seen the newer shows of My Little Pony either, but I've just heard about how it's like this whole cultural change thing where uh, there's a whole big community of like teenagers that like My Little Pony, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the design of the characters, and I think that's why the toys are different. It's because like their faces are different, like they're different shapes. It's a completely different aesthetic to the toys and to the show. I think so. They've changed hand in hand, I think, and it's because it's just completely different now. Um, but God, there were so many good toys. I know I'm probably forgetting a whole bunch. Oh, I had a talk girl. So, like, if you guys saw Home Alone, he had a talk boy. So it was the thing he was in Home Alone 2. He was talking, and it was like a little mini recorder, and it could make his voice go high or low. So like squeaky, but he never used that version. He would use the low version when he pretended to be his dad to book the hotel in New York. I had the talk girl. It was purple. It was awesome, and I would use it to like make my voice sound like an alien. And I think I still have a tape, so it basically recorded on audio cassette tape. So you could listen to it in audio cassette player. Although, unfortunately, my Talk Girl is no more. It's gone. I can't find it. I can't believe I would have thrown it away, but I guess I did. But I've got one tape left, and it says Talk Girl on it. And there's like me talking like an alien on it. It's great. Also, I think Armstrong stretch dolls were pretty fun, where you would stretch their arms like really, really, really far. Oh, I also love, this isn't really a toy, but I love my pogo stick. I used to pogo all the time. That was so much fun. I could do it like hundreds of times. Now, if I tried today, I would like get winded after 20. And I exercise every day, but I think I would fail. Nails said, I like to put my ponies in my brother's castle Grayskull. That's incredible. That's a good mix of toys from different people. Making do with the surroundings you have and the different toys, making use of everything. I love that. Um, it's Peter McAllister, the father. Yeah, I love that from Home Alone. Oh, that's so great. All right, so that was a wonderful question, Dave, and also Nails and Why about the toys. I love that. One time I will do a whole Kelsi like episode about 90s toys because there's so many great old ones that are iconic. And I know I just started following some nostalgia podcasts. A lot of them actually do cover old school toys. And since I like collecting and keeping my toys, I could actually show some of the ones I still have on the stream. So I'll probably do that in the future. So my great friend Tom at COLOHUE, he said, which Buffy character deserved a spin-off the most? And he said side character. I don't know. To me, Giles is a main character, but I think he would be the best character for a spin-off show because not really a spin-off, but more like a prequel show. So maybe looking more at how he became a Watcher. And if you guys remember in the show, they talk about how Giles had kind of like a crazy, wild youth. He always talks about that, how he was wild and stuff. It'd be kind of cool to see some of that in the prequel. How would you do that, though, in terms of, like, aging? Now, there is, like, a de-aging digital process that they could do in post-production of, a spin-off series. But I just don't know how that would work. But, man, his story would be fascinating. And I know Angel got a spin-off series, and I know that Spike was on it, but I would have rather just get a whole Spike, just Spike spin-off instead of Angel. I'm not a big Angel fan, but that's just me. But yeah, I think the Giles one would be my official answer because how interesting would that be just to see how Giles became who he was? I find that really interesting to think about. I think it would be kind of a fascinating character examination. All right, my great friend at Deej Kirkby on Twitter said, what is your Mount Rushmore of snacks for a Netflix binge session? This was the easiest question for me to answer, although I like a billion snacks, and it was a little hard to narrow down the snacks in general, but I did come up with a list. Why is this out of order? All right. So first I said sweet Cajun trail mix. Now, it's like regular Chex Mix or trail mix, but it's got like spicy parts and these like sweet, crunchy parts. And I'm really into it lately. Like I've bought it like 5 times in the last couple of weeks, and I've been eating the bag in like 2 sittings. So like I'll be watching TV, eat half a bag, then I'll watch TV like the next day, eat the rest of the bag. In fact, I just finished a bag that I had bought from Buc-ee's when we went to Florida recently, me and Paul. We stopped at Buc-ee's. I was like, I wonder if they've got, sweet, spicy trail mix, and they did. So it's basically called Sweet Cajun Trail Mix. The Cajun part means it's spicy. So it's really good. Then my other favorite snack or Mount Rushmore snack for Netflix binging would be hot fries. I love hot fries. Now, I'm not talking about Flaming Hot Cheetos, which are different. I'm talking about hot fries. There's like a guy with a mustache and a hat on the bag. It's like a blue and I think it's silver bag, but oh my God, I can eat a whole bag in one sitting. And like while I'm eating it, it's not that hot. I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. It's not that spicy. But then when I like stop eating it and I'm like, okay, I'm done, pigging out on this. That's when the heat hits at the end when you're done. And then, you go to brush your teeth and you're like, oh my God, my tongue burns. And it's like all up in your teeth. And that's the only bad part is the aftermath when it's all over your teeth and stuff and you can't get it out. And your tongue's killing you. But while you're eating them, you're like, man, these are good. And they really are good. So that's definitely got to be on my Mount Rushmore of snacks for sure. Then mint Oreos. Yeah, you might be thinking, mint? Isn't that weird? Well, if you like Thin Mint Girl Scout cookies, I actually think mint Oreos are better than that. Well, I don't know if they're better. They're just different. Because obviously there's a filling, whereas Thin Mints, the Girl Scout cookies, there is no filling. They're just kind of like, wafers. You could just bite in them. There's really no, gooey center, like in an Oreo. There's no stuff in the middle. So whereas mint Oreo, there is, and I like putting them in the freezer and then eating them, and they're a little a little hard and cold. Yeah, it's good. And dunking them in some milk, whether or not they go in the freezer, it doesn't matter, but always with milk. You dunk. Yeah, that's like my favorite. I love mint Oreos so much, but it's scary. 2 cookies are 200 calories. So if you eat a bag, it's 2 days worth of food intake. It's crazy. I have to watch out for that type of stuff because I'm short, 4'11". So 1 bag of Oreos, that's a week's worth of stuff for me. I'm like, damn, I can never get back into shape after just a couple of cookies. That's how bad it is. But yet, mint Oreos have got to be on the Mount Rushmore of snacks. And then finally, another sweet addition to the Mount Rushmore of snacks, Jelly Bellies. I love those, and my favorite flavors are bubblegum, Dr. Pepper, A&W root beer, cinnamon, also the sizzling cinnamon, which is even spicier than the cinnamon. I like that one too, and buttered popcorn, of course. Those are my snacks that I love. And in fact, sometimes Paul gets me Jelly Bellies as part of my Christmas present. He'll a stocking stuffer. It's not my whole present, but he'll give me some of the Jelly Bellies. And we'll be watching TV, and that's when we break out the Jelly Bellies. We're like, let's eat some of them. We try to only eat a handful because those are also high in calories. Everything's high in calories. It sucks. And I love sugar, so suggested serving size for mint Oreos, challenge accepted. Nails and NY is also saying she likes chips and dips, gourmet popcorn, British tea and biscuits, which would be cookies in the USA, and what's Haribo? Harbo? Is that a type of cookies? What is that? Am I saying it wrong? I'm sure I am. I'm so dumb sometimes. Whatevs. I'm tired. It's a lazy Saturday. Here in New Orleans, everyone is gearing up for Mardi Gras parades. In fact, one of the biggest parades is today. It's called Endymion. And when I was a kid, my uncles would ride in the parade, hundreds and hundreds of people ride in the parade. It's very expensive, this particular parade in Endymion. And so I would go with my aunt and my other uncle who didn't ride in the parade, and we would get up at 6 o'clock for Endymion. Maybe sometimes it was 5 o'clock, and we'd go down there to New Orleans and try to get our spot. And even though we went that early, we would never get in the front. We're talking a spot, a couple of rows back, and we had ladders. It was a good spot, though. Worth waiting around 8 hours for. But yeah, I'm kind of glad I'm not doing that anymore. I kind of just chill now during Mardi Gras because my work schedule gets so crazy because we do a broadcast of a Mardi Gras ball on Mardi Gras. So leading up to that is so crazy. Yesterday was crazy for me at work. I got to go in tomorrow, even though it's Sunday. I got to go in. And, Tuesday I'm going to be working till 1 a.m. on Mardi Gras. But it's okay. It's a lot of extra money, so at least that's good. But yeah, most people in New Orleans today aren't just being lazy and chilling around. They're out and about having fun. I'm just like, whatever. That's too much work. That's too much hassle. So although people are out saying, throw me something, mister, I'm here talking with you guys. And I kind of prefer it that way, I got to be honest. I really don't feel like being in the cold. It's a little chilly today, but not really that cold. Oh, they're gummies. The Haribo. What the hell? Star Mix? I've never heard of that before, but that's pretty cool. Nails says British girl in the U.S. problems. That's awesome. I should try to find some. I mean, I'm sure you probably have to order them online. I guess you can't get them here. Can you, Nails? I'd love to try. I'm up for trying snacks all the time. Any snacks ever. I'm like, yeah, snacks. That's my favorite. Harbo, then. Yeah, okay. I know that brand name. but I didn't know they were gummies. Well, anyway, I'm gonna check it out. All right. I'm probably saying stupid like stuff. People are like, "Oh, you're so ridiculous and silly." Like I said, it's because it's a lazy Saturday and my mind's not completely functioning and connecting together. It is what it is. A new cool podcast I found called Wreck My Podcast on Twitter. Go and check them out, guys. They do a lot of nostalgia stuff. They're saying, with Dunkaroos making a comeback, which lesser known 90s snack food, deceased or not, deserves some recognition too? And let me just say, I haven't had a chance to talk about Dunkaroos coming back. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Dunkaroos. I've wanted them to come back for like 20 years. Well, not 20, like 15. Whenever they stopped making them, I think it was quite a while ago, but I've wanted them to return since they've been gone. They were the most delicious, the most sugary goodness ever. Ever. I'm so excited that they're coming back. So, it's kind of like a dream come true for me. I've even looked up like recipes to try to make your own Dunkaroos. This is how much I miss them. And apparently for a while, Walmart, I think it was Walmart, their like food section of like the grocery Walmarts had something that was similar. And it had like, it was almost like funfetti icing that they sold, and they would sell little like sugar cookies with it. They didn't call them Dunkaroos, of course. They called them something. But somebody suggested online when I was looking for Dunkaroo recipes that you go to Walmart and get these cookies to like, experience a similar taste to the old school Dunkaroos. Now we don't have to do that. Now there's actual Dunkaroos coming back. I'm so excited. Mark's joining us in the chat. Thanks for joining, Mark. Appreciate your time. Thanks to everyone who's still sticking with me, even though I'm having all kinds of brain spasms and all that stuff. I appreciate you guys very much for hanging with me. But yeah, talking about all these snacks sure is making me hungry. What's on the menu for tonight? For you guys, I don't know. But for me, it's going to be tacos and nachos. It sounds pretty darn good. And maybe some beer, which will be really fun too. All right. Then we've got, did I skip any? Oh yeah, well, first I just talked about Dunkaroos. I didn't talk about the actual, see, this is why my brain's spazzing out. What is wrong with me? All right, so 90s snack foods that I miss and I think deserve some recognition. A lot of these don't exist. He said that, the podcast said that I could shout out snacks that still exist or don't exist. It doesn't matter. But I think everything on my list doesn't exist. All right, so first, and I'm sure nobody's heard of these, but Blue Bunny root beer float bars. Specifically this brand, there's been other root beer float popsicles before, but this specific one I used to get in the 90s and early 2000s all the time. I looked online the other day. They don't exist. At first, I saw some links that you could buy them in stores, but then when I clicked the link, it said, sorry, this product is no longer available. Then I went to the actual Blue Bunny site, and it's not on there. So my assumption is that it means it's not there. I couldn't find like a Wikipedia page about it, about this specific kind. But I'm sure, I guess I could look at the Blue Bunny if they have a Wikipedia page just about the company, but I didn't see that either. Anyway, I couldn't find the actual product anywhere, so I assume they're gone. It was a blue package, and oh my god, the taste. I remember it like it was yesterday. So the outside was like a frozen, but not so frozen. It was like the consistency was really like a soft type of frozen. So you would bite into this awesome, perfect consistency of a root beer shell, and then on the inside, this amazing extra vanilla-ish popsicle center, like an ice cream center. So it was kind of like a popsicle on the outside and an ice cream bar on the inside. And it was the most incredible, I guess you could call it popsicle / ice cream mix ever. It was great. And then also, I think kind of similar product in terms that it was like ice cream. Flintstones push-ups. Those were incredible. Now, they still have push-ups today, but they don't have Flintstones push-ups. And you might be saying, what's the difference? Who cares if it's Flintstones character representation or not? There was something about the taste of these Flintstones push-up bars that were extra incredible that don't exist today. So to me, bring those suckers back, man. The orange ones are really good. I remember that. Just something that exists today are Flintstones vitamins, and those aren't candy, but those were good as a kid. I used to love those vitamins. Sometimes I would eat an extra vitamin because it was so good and almost treat it like candy, even though you're not supposed to do that. The serving size was 1 vitamin a day. I'd be like, haha, I'm going to eat 2 or 3, but then no more than that because I think that would have been really bad. But yeah, I ate it anyway, whatever. And then finally, This exists, but they changed the recipe and it's blasphemy. So, a 90s snack I miss, Rice Krispie Treat cereal. It did exist in its 90s form like a year or two ago. They've now changed the recipe. You can only get it at a few stores, but like Target sells it. So you go to Target. Already, you go up down the aisle, the cereal aisle. You see the box. It looks different. They made the elves look weird and it's just strange, completely different. That doesn't bother me. If they just redid the box, it wouldn't be a problem. Redoing the recipe for this cereal is like, it should be a sin. Like I said, it's blasphemy. There are, instead of awesome chunks, the old cereal was like you took a Rice Krispie Treat bar, you broke it up, and you threw it in a box. That's what it was like. But it was even better than the actual bars because the little chunks with the icing on it was like lighter. It was almost like fluffier than a Rice Krispie Treat. Rice Krispie Treat, the treat itself had more mass to it. It was more thick and chewier. The cereal was like a little less chewy and was more crunchy, lighter, not as heavy in terms of texture. And it just was perfectly balanced with flavor, and it was so sugary and wonderful. The new recipe, they basically just put in regular Rice Krispies. They got a little bit of flavor, and then what they did was they put mini marshmallows in it. The original recipe does not have mini marshmallows. It's just like cereal with a sugar coating that's like kind of marshmallow-ish flavor. This one, it's like, oh, it's healthier. Let's like actually use like these fake dry marshmallows. No, 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 this isn't Lucky Charms. No, no, no. What are you doing? It's like they mixed Rice Krispie treats, the plain kind. I mean, Rice Krispies, the plain kind, with flippin' Lucky Charms. But the marshmallows aren't even that good as Lucky Charms are. Lucky Charms marshmallows, I could just pick those out and just eat the marshmallows. That's fine. Those marshmallows are good. But the new Rice Krispie Treat cereal uses marshmallows that are that consistency, but not that good of flavor. So same consistency as the Lucky Charms marshmallows, but not as good tasting. It's almost like, I don't know. It's like tastes like a deflated marshmallow. It's just really gross. It's not as good. I tried to eat my first bowl of it with an open mind. I'm like, okay, they changed the recipe. I'm gonna try not to freak out. I'll try to judge it fairly. I ate a bite and I was like, this is horrible. Never buying it again. And then Paul had to help me eat the box of cereal because I didn't like it and I was all bummed out about it. I was like, I'm not eating this. I'm never buying it again because I'm never supporting it. In fact, I tweeted about how disappointed I was. So that's got to be the number one disappointment for a 90s snack that went away, because it did exist. Why did you have to take it away when it was right at our fingertips? Damn you. Cereal companies trying to be all healthy so they can get all the mom's endorsements. Damn you. Nails said, marshmallow never works in cereal. It's always too dry. Make it stop. Yeah, and Dave also says marshmallows always got slimy in the cereal, and it's true. I mean, I don't mind the Lucky Charms marshmallows. For some reason, those are kind of good. But yeah, it's just a bummer. People are saying taco night equals the best night. That's what Dave is saying. Derek's laughing at me talking about my brain spasms. Well, I kind of am having some, but I'll just blame it on how I'm hungry. I think people can blame anything on hunger and people will believe them. That's what I'm going to do. Our next question, and we're nearing the end here, is coming from Doc Rasslin at Doctor of Rasslin, and that's Rasslin with an R. What was your favorite song of the 90s and why? This was one of the hardest questions I got asked. I mean, geez, Pete's, man. This was so difficult. And I wrote down little answers because I didn't want to forget anything. All right, so favorite 90s song. Of course, like in the actual 90s, I loved NSYNC. Like that was my jam. That was my favorite band. So I got to say, Tearing Up My Heart, when I was a kid living in the 90s, that was probably my favorite song of the era. I also liked, of course, Britney Spears, any of those awesome boy bands and pop bands and pop acts of the 90s I loved. But today, I listen to the song Jumper a lot and Semi-Charmed Life. I listen to that all the time. Those have got to be my favorite songs from the 90s that I listen to today. Like, I think Jumper always winds up in my favorite songs on Spotify. So, like, when it tells you your year in review, it'll say, like, most popular played songs. I think Jumper is usually always in my little list that it makes up for me. I also really like, No Doubt's Spiderwebs. That's a great song from the 90s. And I got to shout out a rap song. I love Snoop Dogg, and I really love What's My Name. It's great. Great song from the 90s, of course. So those are all, I think, good choices. Of course, if you're going more grungy, you could say any Nirvana song. But as an actual kid living in the 90s during that era, like I said, it's hands down NSYNC at the time. That was always my favorite. I was always an NSYNC fan over Backstreet Boys. Always. Mark is saying No Doubt is a cool band for sure. Really, I love them, and they have a lot of great hits. Of course, when you were in the car in the 90s, you couldn't go anywhere. I feel like you'd always hear their most popular song. What's that song? Don't Speak. Yeah, you would hear that in the radio all the time. You'd be in the car, it would come on inevitably. And not that it's not good, it's just like such a kind of sad song, and it would always be on. I know for sure I've skipped some answers. Yeah, for some reason, I didn't answer the movie soundtrack question from Nails. I had it on here, and for some reason, I accidentally skipped it, Nails. I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to answer what is my favorite movie soundtrack, which I believe I didn't already answer. Again, if I'm brain spazzing again, let me know, guys, because I felt like I did skip this. So I have all this written down because this was the hardest question out of all for me because I like a lot of movie soundtracks, and I kind of have a mix of scores, musicals, and regular movie soundtracks on here. So like the scores that I like, E.T., Jurassic Park, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone has an amazing score, and I just got to hear it played live by the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra. It was incredible. And also, I was lucky enough to see E.T. with an orchestra as well. I got to see the movie as the orchestra played the actual music live. It was awesome. And, that's all John Williams. And I really am a big fan of John Williams because I think his scores are incredible. Then, if we are talking about more like songs on, in a movie soundtrack, I like Goodfellas. Forrest Gump, I think, has one of the best movie soundtracks of all time. So much classic rock on that soundtrack. In fact, I looked up some of the bands included on Forrest Gump's soundtrack: Fleetwood Mac, The Byrds, Simon and Garfunkel, The Beach Boys, Creedence Clearwater Revival. So many great bands on that soundtrack. So that alone has to be one of the top contenders. Because every time I watch Forrest Gump, and I used to watch it quite often, the soundtrack just sticks out. It's like so well done. It had to cost a lot of money to use all those songs because it has some popular songs in there. And then other movies that I love the soundtracks to: The Graduate, which is all Simon and Garfunkel songs. It's one of my favorite movies ever. It's kind of more of a sophisticated movie. I, watched it a lot in college, but I just love the soundtrack. I think it's great. You can't go wrong with Mrs. Robinson. Such a catchy song. But the other songs in it are good too, not just Mrs. Robinson. The whole thing, Simon and Garfunkel. Then, if we're talking about kind of like musicals, this is more of like an operetta, which means it's not an opera because there is some talking. It's not all singing all the time in the movie or if you saw it on Broadway, it's not all singing all the time. So they call it an operetta. And also, it's not like classical opera in that it's in a different language. So this is my favorite, Pirates of Penzance. There was a movie made that had a lot of the original Broadway people who were in the most popular version of it, including Linda Ronstadt, who was a big, recording artist. She's just got inducted into like a whole bunch of, not a Hall of Fame, the Kennedy Awards. I think she just got honored there. And she also had a documentary that was released about her recently that I watched. But yeah, she's incredible. She's in it. Kevin Kline's in it. Isn't that his name? Yeah, Kevin Kline. I remember my friend used to make fun of me because I would always accidentally call him Calvin Klein, but it's Kevin Kline, the actor. He was in the movie as the Pirate King. So yeah, Pirates of Penzance is one of my favorite musical movie soundtracks. Sweeney Todd, incredible. The Johnny Depp movie version, I really love a lot. And then back to like movies that used actual songs, Space Jam. Funnily enough, it has a great soundtrack. I really got to say, it's really catchy. A lot of like really cool, like pump up the jam. It's just ridiculous, but great. I'm gonna leave my favorite for last, so I'm skipping that one. That's why I'm like saying a lot. All right, so then we've got Home Alone. I think is one of the best Christmas soundtracks of a movie of all time. I love that movie, and I think the soundtrack is just perfect. Really puts you in the holiday mood. They picked some great stuff, and not only are the songs, the Christmas songs they use, really good. Obviously, the actual score, which is done again by John Williams, is really, really awesome and well done, beautifully scored overall. And then I also like A Hard Day's Night and Help, which are both Beatle movies, of course, filled with Beatles songs only. And I think a lot of people love later Beatle albums, but I love the early Beatles stuff mostly because of the two movies, A Hard Day's Night and Help. I actually got introduced to the Beatles through those movies. So for me, those are actually like my favorite Beatle albums are those movie soundtracks essentially. And I know that's like really random. A lot of people like the later stuff, they like the White Album and Revolver and Rubber Soul. But me, I'm like, yeah, Help and A Hard Day's Night. It's like when they were kind of going in between the young sound and then the later sound. It was a good mix of both, in my opinion. And the movies are so much fun. And I'm just a big Beatles fan, so I like those. I'm kind of biased. And then finally, my favorite movie soundtrack, which is really more of like a score, The Dark Knight Rises, which of course is the one with Bane. I just think that is an amazing score. It's done by Hans Zimmer, I believe, or is it Zimmerman? I'm always unprepared for this. All right, let me look it up again. I'm pretty sure it's Zimmerman. No, it's Zimmer. I was right the first time. What is wrong with me? So Hans Zimmer is the composer, and the soundtrack just is incredible. There's like this cool chanting part that is in a lot of the songs throughout the movie, and it's really catchy, really really good. It's like hey hey ha ha ha, ha. I can't do it. I can't really say it's like some actual language, but I don't know what it is. I can't really say the actual words, but it's a great soundtrack. If you guys aren't familiar with it, there's actually some great bonus features about the making of the music on the DVD. If you guys own the DVD, I would check that out. Really interesting and fascinating to find out the composer's thought process when he was composing the score. Really just well done. And I listened to the whole album. That's why it's my favorite, because I have the whole thing on my Spotify playlist, every track, and I've listened to it all the time. It's perfect for driving around in your car on a rainy day or a rainy night. It really feels like you're in the movie, kind of. It kind of works perfectly with a dark day. It's the perfect soundtrack of your life when you're driving around on like a stormy afternoon or evening. Oh wow, Nails said her favorite soundtracks are West Side Story and Juno. Juno is a great movie, and Tim Burton. Yeah, she was saying that she didn't even think about Tim Burton movies. Of course, Nightmare Before Christmas has one of the greatest soundtracks ever. Like that soundtrack in terms of like a holiday movie is just so beautifully done and so interesting, because the songs obviously aren't actual songs that anybody knows, but now they know them because the movie made them so popular. And it's like, if you played This Is Halloween, someone is going to recognize that immediately. Most people, like 95% of people, I think, would know what that's from. And so to me, I think that's the sign of a successful, why can't I talk? A successful soundtrack, which I think that Nightmare Before Christmas definitely is a successful soundtrack. I can't wait for food. Then I will not make any more mistakes. All because I need sustenance. All right, so that was a wonderful question, Nails. Thank you so much. We're nearing the end here. We've got at Wrestling in Vain. Is there a director whose movies can be watched to learn movie making? Who would that be? I love this question because, I went to film school, so I love movies. And I like a lot of different styles of filmmaking. So to me, like there's directors that jump right off the page. When I was writing this, I was like, oh, I gotta write this director down. I think you can learn from different directors for different things. So like Spielberg is a great director to watch just for like a great consistent kind of filmmaking product. I feel like he puts out a really standard blockbuster type of film, but still is artsy enough that like appeals to people who really like to look at the details in movies. So I think he's got like a mass appeal, but also kind of an artsy appeal too. So he's a good mix. And I think that's why his movies have been obviously so successful throughout his whole entire career. So to me, you can't have a list of directors to learn from and not include Spielberg. That would just be wrong. Then, of course, I think Martin Scorsese is a wonderful director. And to me, it's like I was thinking about either putting Tarantino or Scorsese on here. And to me, if I'm choosing between the two, it's easily Scorsese who deserves to be on my list here, because I just love the majority of his movies. I like his style. And I think he has a particular style in terms of, if you watch one of his movies, whether in content or the way the content's executed, with the way it's like, filmed. Either way, I think you can tell it's a Scorsese film. Usually, if it's about gangsters and stuff, you're like, this might have been made by Scorsese. Or if you're like looking at it and there's some like long tracking shots and there's some specific things that Scorsese does that other people don't do. Also, like his music choices are usually really, really good. Like I love The Departed. That's got a great soundtrack. And to me, other directors might have gone with the score, whereas Scorsese actually used like popular music. Obviously, you've got Dropkick Murphys in there, of course, because it really makes sense. It's all in Boston and stuff. And, Dropkick Murphys and Boston go hand in hand. But I just think it was a really good choice the way he, added the songs to that movie. But yeah, Scorsese, you could learn from him in so many different ways. If you're talking about 90s kids movies or any kids movies or just family films, I think Chris Columbus. A lot of people talk about John Hughes and how great of a director he is. And he is a great director. But some movies that Chris Columbus did that John Hughes wrote, people think it's actually John Hughes, but it really was Chris Columbus. Like so many great movies throughout time were made by Chris Columbus that people don't realize. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Chris Columbus. He's just been involved in so many great kids movie projects. In fact, like I could look up his IMDb page and tell you guys, he's just a really talented guy. Like I said, he's worked quite a bit with John Hughes. He directed Home Alone, not John Hughes. So when you think about Home Alone, a lot of people think it's John Hughes. John Hughes wrote it, but he didn't direct it. So let me look up specifically Chris Columbus, director. Like I said, Home Alone, Harry Potter, Mrs. Doubtfire. So can he make a family movie? Heck yeah, he can. I just like a lot of those movies right there are iconic. And when you can list off so many iconic films, I think you deserve to be a director that people can learn from. I just think if you want to make a family-friendly film, he'd be a good guy to look at his portfolio. And then finally, if you really want to be stylistic and look at how a director does things in a very particular way, Wes Anderson. And actually, there's a new trailer for one of his movies that is in the works, looks very artsy. He's very much into, color design and set design. Everything he makes is very, very colorful and is done in a certain color palette. And I think when you see the trailer of a Wes Anderson movie, it's a Wes Anderson movie. Like as soon as I clicked on the new trailer, even if I hadn't known already before I clicked that it was his, as soon as you start watching it, you're like, this is Wes Anderson. People were actually criticizing that, saying that it's a bad thing. But it's funny, they're criticizing Wes Anderson for having a style and never deviating, but no one criticizes like Scorsese for doing that. He definitely has a style, but no one criticizes him. So why are they criticizing Wes Anderson? I just think, I don't know, whatever. People are being too picky. And of course, finally, if you like horror movies, John Carpenter, you can't go wrong with looking at any of his work. The way he shot Halloween, I think is just revolutionary. The tracking shot, the camera kind of being Michael Myers' point of view at the beginning of the movie. It's like he has a mask on. That's like the camera shot. It's like as the audience member are Michael Myers looking through the camera, looking through the mask. So just the way he did things was really, really neat. And all those directors, you can't go wrong with looking at their bodies of work. And then I think I'm coming to my final question. I know you guys have hung out with me quite a while. I really appreciate it. My good friend, Prime Nostalgia Podcast, you guys should check him out. He's got great stuff, very nostalgic. Lots of cool old school content at KVNG Primetime. What would your ideal crossover episode from anything be? Nickelodeon, Disney, Cartoon Network, any show? Well, I put out a poll recently on Twitter pitting Goosebumps versus Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I think that would be a really cool crossover to do like an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that actually was a story from a Goosebumps book. So like the kids of the Midnight Society gather around to tell a story and maybe they're even holding a Goosebumps book. I think that'd be really cool. But even I think would be a better crossover would be the Disney show So Weird mixed with Are You Afraid of the Dark? So I think the Midnight Society would be telling a story, and one of the stories would be like an episode of So Weird, essentially. And that's how it would be a crossover. And if you guys don't remember, the show was incredible. It was on Disney Channel in I think it was late 90s, early 2000s. And what made it really good was that it was a great sci-fi kind of eerie horror show on Disney Channel, which is an odd combination. When you think Disney, you don't think horror movies or horror content or scary or eerie or sci-fi. But that show had all of that. It definitely had like a horror movie vibe to it. It definitely, I think, took inspiration from horror movies and from sci-fi shows. Like I think it took inspiration from the X-Files because it really had that kind of vibe. But mixing that with Are You for the Dark would be kind of cool, I think, for sure. All right, guys. That was my last question. Well, actually, someone did ask me what the best 90s cartoon was. And if I was just talking about my personal favorite 90s cartoon, I would have said Rugrats last year. But because I just rewatched all of Rocco, I gotta say, as of right now, Rocco would be my favorite 90s cartoon of all time. But in terms of most popular cartoon from the 90s, I don't know. Maybe Batman, the animated series. Actually, maybe Rugrats would be technically the most popular because they've got like a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was super popular. They had a movie that did well in theaters, like it did well in terms of the box office numbers. So maybe Rugrats would have been like the most popular 90s cartoon. I don't know. There's a lot of good cartoons from the 90s that could technically be considered the most popular, but I appreciate you guys asking questions, hanging with me. I appreciate you, Dave, Derek, Nails, Mark in the chat too. You guys rule. Loved hearing your thoughts and comments. And before I sign off, let me just read a few things that you guys had to say. Nails said she loves when I get all muddled up because I'm so excited about the subject. Yeah, like my brain's like thinking so much stuff at once. I'm like, I can't think that. And then it explodes. And everyone sees and they're like, what is Kelsi talking about? They think I'm crazy. But I'm glad you like it, Nails. Dave says Tarantino does a similar thing, just like Wes Anderson, whereas Tarantino has a specific style that you could be like, yeah, that's a Tarantino movie. So why are people criticizing Wes Anderson for having a style when no one does that about Tarantino or Scorsese or even like Spielberg? For a while, he's kind of like deviated from his norm, but Spielberg had like a formula for a while. You can't deny that. Even though his films were successful, he definitely, I think, had a formula and a style that he adhered to. So to me, it's kind of bonkers to just single out Anderson for that. I kind of think Anderson is so different with his style that you can't confuse his movies with anybody else. And to me, that's a good thing, not a bad thing, because there's so very few directors you could say that about, in my opinion. Oh yeah. Nails is saying that she was thinking of the Uncle Buck music, the heavy bass music when Uncle Buck is getting scary with the boyfriend. That's awesome. Is that movie Uncle Buck Columbus or Hughes? And that's a good question. Actually, I think they both were involved. Again, let me look. That might have been John Hughes, but I don't know. Let me look. Of course, it says it's produced by John Hughes. Let me go further. Just why can't it tell me the answer in the summary? Darn thing. It makes you click another link. So it was written by John Hughes and produced by John Hughes and directed by John Hughes. So no, Chris Columbus didn't do Uncle Buck, but he worked a lot with John Hughes later in later stuff. And I think they worked together on Dennis the Menace, which nobody likes but me. Like the other day, I put out a poll on Twitter, what 90s movies do you guys want me to rewatch? And I had a list of suggestions, like of movies people could vote on. And one of them was Dennis the Menace. And not one person said that movie, but it's so good. There's so many great people in Dennis the Menace, including Walter Matthau, who's one of my favorite old school actors. If you guys like the movie The Odd Couple, he was in that. He did a lot of movies with Jack Lemmon. He's incredible. But I think John Hughes wrote Dennis the Menace, the movie. Let me look. It's just cool how many filmmakers and producers are kind of like interconnected and work together in one point or another, and how many kids movies from the 90s are actually connected in a way where they've got like similar people working on it. Oh my god, the Rotten Tomatoes score. I'm going to talk about this in the movie stream, but it is so bad. It's like 27% for Dennis the Menace. How could that be? It's a good movie. Christopher Lloyd is in it. He's the bad guy, and he's an amazing bad guy in it. And the kid's a cute actor. Like, I don't know. How could it be so bad? I always think it's a great movie. But it was actually directed by not Chris Columbus. It was directed by Nick Castle, but it was written by John Hughes. So Dennis the Menace is another one I would recommend. especially if you like a great actor like Walter Matthau. I think he really elevated the movie, for sure. So at the time, you had to choose between Dennis the Menace or Problem Child. This is what Nails is saying. Like, usually you liked one or the other, Dennis the Menace or Problem Child. That's true, actually. I know a lot of people who like Problem Child, and I actually never got into it. I like Dennis the Menace. So maybe you had to, like, pick a team of which movie you liked or whatever. Derek saying that he enjoyed Walter Matthau's work, The Odd Couple, Grumpy Old Men, Grumpier Old Men, Out to Sea. Yeah, Out to Sea was great too. All of his stuff with Jack Lemmon, they had great chemistry, and they actually had a real life friendship, which I think comes across on the screen too when they work together. So all of his work, I would suggest you guys check it out. Walter Matthau, classic actor. You can't go wrong with anything he did. But thanks for leaving those comments, guys. I really enjoy reading your opinions, your thoughts. It's just so much fun, and I always like to answer your questions. Hopefully I didn't leave anything out. I kind of was reading off of my paper, so I might not have, shouted you guys out in the comments as much as I wanted to, as I usually do. But thanks for hanging with me, and I'm going to be doing more videos soon. Again, look out for that 90s stream. Please share the video. Please leave a like if you liked it. Please sub if you haven't subbed already. All that would mean the world to me, and it would just really help out my channel, because I'm trying to grow the channel and gain subs and gain actually watch time. And by doing that, even if you guys don't watch the whole video, if you leave it up and leave it playing for a while, even that helps. So if you guys are tuning in late, if you could go back and click and maybe just let it play, that really helps the numbers. And the more numbers I can get, I could actually turn on the monetization for my channel and like earn some money for my channel, which would be really great. So please, any of that would help. And actually, I've got merch too that has some really cool 90s themed logo designs. If you want to check out my merch store, the link is in the description right now of the video you're looking at. Also, if you want to buy me a coffee on ko-fi.com, that's, of course, coffee spelled with a K, K-O-F-I. The link is also in the description below. So check that out. And if you want to see my other pop culture videos, my Kelsi Likes videos about Bill Murray, about 90s Nickelodeon, I did a whole hour-long video about 90s Nick. That's in the description too. It's I think it says something like, to check out my other pop culture videos, click here. So that link will give you the playlist for all of those videos. So thanks so much for sticking with me, guys. Until next time, that's it. Thank you. Appreciate you guys so much.